Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Division 2 of the NLC, the Northern League of Legends Championship. Today marks day 13 of Division 2, and my name is Alexandra Sharon Maes. I just did a switcheroo out of a sudden, and I'm together with Jamada.
Yeah, you're my height now. You're too tall, which is technically true in real life. You are slightly
Is it
taller than me.
better?
Slightly taller than me by like an inch. So thank you, Reed, for giving me a couple of extra inches. I need it. I'm too short. But yo, we're back. It's another Tuesday, which means you and I are on Div 2. And off the back of the Super Week straight away, obviously not as big of a break between match days. Super excited to see how these teams get on coming out of the Super Week. A lot of different stories actually managed to unfold throughout Super Week. So I'm very, very excited to just continue to track how these teams continue to hopefully develop in many cases towards the end of the split.
The end of the split, we will have promotion for a few of these teams, while on Division 1 is going to be relegation. Let's see who's going to be the best at that tournament. Let's call it a tournament, as they're going to rise into Division 1 or maybe stay at Division 2. And I know a lot of these teams are hungry for the opportunity to jump into Division 1, while teams on Division 1 don't want to jump into Division 2. So it's going to be a battle, a bloodbath as well, as we're about to jump on match day 13. The games of today, I don't know if we have it for you. It's going to start off with Lightside versus, there you go. That's the amazing production. Lightside versus Munster Rugby Gaming. And why is this an important one? Well, Lightside had an whoopsie week on the previous one. They went from the first place to the second one, and this could be their opportunity to climb back into the top of the standings. They won't get the top of the standings today, but at least that will be helpful for them if they win versus Monster Rugby Gaming. While we're talking about a team that in a previous split was a menace, Monster Rugby Gaming, and this split they're trying to fight for the place in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a fall from grace. So, with so little time having passed, that can be the nature though of, even ERLs, but, Division 2 rosters shift very frequently. We didn't have any of the players returning from spring to summer. And then obviously we then had a massive roster shift up midway through the split. So, time still needs to take its own effect for Munster. Hopefully they can get to a point where they're happy with each other. They click, most importantly, and they do it, before playoffs. As long as they make it in that top six, that's obviously the important part. Even if they're not reaching that same level of glory that we saw from spring, where it was top 2, and then, unfortunately, second place, it didn't end up being a finals win for them. Getting playoffs is at the very least, the bare minimum. And hopefully for them, we can see some form of redemption coming.
So tell me, Jim, out of all the games we have up there, what do you believe it's going to be the spicy one of today?
Ooh, honestly, I feel like it's, strangely enough, it's either going to be Rising Dawn Lucent, if Lucent decide to overperform, though I expect Rising Dawn should be winning that game more times than they don't. And then probably Domino Unique. These are the two teams in my head, which, like, Domino, on occasion, are like a pretty damn good team. They pick up wins against the likes of Nayas, but typically, they're kind of a team I described last week in Super Week, I believe, as a team that will normally very handedly beat teams below them in the standings, but above them, they just kind of lose. So they're definitely very much like a middling of the pack roster, at least to me right now. And Unique still have a lot to sort of prove for themselves. Unfortunately for them, against that curse, they are actually one win up on Domino. So hopefully for them, that means that they can take them down.
And that's the thing. From one side, you want to climb the ladder, you want to get the better position as we move on into the corner, I would say, of playoffs. On the other side, it's going to be Lucent. Lucent wants to get this one so they can finally get closer to the third seed. And why is that? Well, I'll explain to you while we have time. First seed and second seed at the end of the regular split will allow these two teams to jump one game in the playoffs. They're going to fight between themselves, and the loser goes into the losers bracket, allowing them to fight yet one more time from third seed to second to sixth seed. Well, the third one is going to pick the team that they want to fight against, and the fourth one will get the remaining team. So it's really important, if you're on the lower part of playoffs, to get access to the third seed. It's really important for you to decide who you want to go against. By the way, on the previous split, both Division 1 and Division 2, the teams that decided to, the third seed that decided to fight against whoever they wanted, they lost. So I think it's a curse of the third seed.
It could end up being a curse. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But I am, again, very excited to actually see what exactly happens towards the end of the split, because every single, again, I said this with Jake a lot, whether it's Division 2, whether it's UKLC, whether it's Tedia Ligan, it just feels like these these leagues always end up being, you know, to the wire, to the final game of the day, of the split rather. And things just don't end up being resolved, like, ever. So or not ever, but don't end up being resolved until that final day. So, you know, I look towards now, apparently, Lightside, as they've kind of slipped up, and maybe the prophecy of they were looking a little bit stronger than their score actually indicated has come true. But, you know, all the way down to even Lucent, like, have a solid shot, and Guap as well. As long as they can pick up a couple of wins, I think, you know, the golden standard is normally about 9, normally 8 can get you in on a tie break typically. So, you know, I'm looking towards those teams and I'm saying 4 out of 6, you might be against some tough opponents, but if you can, you know, step up and, you know, take some wins off of teams that maybe aren't expecting you to do so, all of a sudden you end up in that top 6 and you're in playoffs.
Champion Select, let's get it rolling for the first game of the day for Division 2 of the NLC. It's going to be Korki, Kalis, and Zeri on the blue side to get kicked away from the Champion Select, and from the Rift is on the other side. It's a more stable, the Control Mage in the mid lane, Volibear in the jungle, and to see the last one for MRG. Who do you think it's going to be? Who's that
I mean, you have things like Wukong to remove away from Bambi. You have something like Lilia as well, is also a pretty strong ban, but yeah, Yuumi, I guess, makes the most sense. But the issue is that leaves out the Seraphine, which has been pretty consistently banned on red side, on 12-12, had a bunch of very, very strong buffs, in particular the base, cooldowns of the beat drop, in particular being lowered, and then also the root and the slow being increased, if I recall the buffs correctly. So it's just risen Seraphine up into a pretty high level of priority at the moment, as Munster, they're just going to pick up the center in response. They can go for the direct pairing right now if they really want to, but what I'd expect to see is Shakal's jungler. Plenty of those still up and available. Only really Volibear was pinched from the pool, so Munster can probably just get pick of the layer. If they want something like that, Wukong, the Viego, both up and available. But we've definitely seen a bit of a drop-off in priority on the Viego. Those nerfs maybe hitting him harder than anticipated originally. But it will just be that center Tahm Kench which comes in, which does give Lightside the opportunity to just kind of pick full scaling into the bottom side. They already have the Seraphine, and then they can kind of look to maybe round out with like kind of a bruiser comp towards the end of the draft. But we'll have to see what Lightside do, because they do very often lean on very easy to execute compositions, which has definitely been something that's been sussed out by some of our teams that have started to take them down, especially in the Super Week. We're going to get Bambi on the Graves though, which is definitely a much different look to what we see from the junglers in meta at the moment. And I wonder if this means that we're going to probably get teasers on something that can secure a lot of early lane priority, like the Azir, to sort of secure, ganks, to try and not even just set up for the ganks, but to just kind of secure Graves' first early clears, so that he can have backup if he wants to go and invade off the back of those.
By the way, Jamada, we are on 12.12b, so Seraphine, Sin, and Tahm Kench have been hit, and they're still going for them. It's more about being comfortable with those champions and looking into the meta. I mean, we are defining our own meta as we move along. And there you go. You have the Rakan as well. Now, this could be a Seraphine for the mid lane. It could be to the bot as well. You know what they can do on the bot side. So it's going to be a flex on one side or the other side. You already know who you're going to have. So maybe we get to see the jungler as we do on the Lightside side. And it's going to be the Lilia. You talked about her, even though she got hit on the 12.12, but you still believed it. He's back. The Spearman. It's not the one that I like, but it's the Spearman.
Okay, last second swap over to the Xin Zhao instead. Definitely very interesting. I've seen the Xin Zhao pop up more than once in the last couple of match days, I feel like. And definitely a champion that, you know, compared to where he was sitting at the start of the year, nowhere near as popular as what he was. But he still effectively does a lot of the same things. He's just a little less efficient at it just because the numbers are slightly lower. And obviously, jungle meta in general has kind of shifted away from what it was at the start of the year, where there's a lot of heavy gankers and things of that nature. But we are into the second ban phase, so Juani taken off the board, so maybe expecting another sort of engaged tank from the top side to be taken off the board. Maybe something like the Ornn is what follows, a very like basic, simple champion that you don't really want to have you know, folded on top of Seraphine and Rakan engage. It can definitely become quite oppressive, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Munster either ban that or take it themselves, but I think they probably want a damage dealer from the top side, something kind of bruisery as opposed to an outright tank. But as for Lightside, maybe they themselves want to consider banning the Azir now, because if they end up running into Senna Azir, Xin Zhao, it's a lot of, you know, anti-dive, and the Tahm Kench as well, but it's a lot of anti-dive, it's a lot of, you know, lane priority for the mid lane for then Chakal to maybe get into Bambi's face and try and get some invades going too. but it's actually the Ezreal that gets removed away. So they're more worried about a very slippery bottom lane, which says to me that Munster maybe could be looking to try and attack the bottom side of the map early on.
The Ornn is still available, and it could be Monster Rugby Gaming looking for that one. They take away the Sejuani. It's a bruiser that, well, it's not a bruiser, it's supposed to be attacked, but you know the damage that Sejuani can deal onto you. And that's one that you can deal with if you take away the Sejuani. There you go, it's going to be the ban away from Lightside. So no of those, no for those hard engages, and also to play from behind. But you know the Knot is available, and now the answers are a little bit more slim, I would say. We still have the Jace. We saw the Jace yesterday on Division 1. It could happen, but it's not going to be that one. They're going to go for the mid lane, apparently, with the Lissandra. This is a lot of anti-dive. Like, if you want to dive these guys, good luck.
Yeah, it really is. And I wonder if Lightside are maybe going to try and adapt, see if they pick up some more range. You mentioned the Jace obviously more into the Gnar matchup, but that could be an okay blind in this kind of situation. You could run into something like the Camille matchup where then, you know, maybe you're dealing with the likes of the Orianna. I'm not the Orianna, I see it because I say it because it's being hovered. The Lissandra, and then the Camille like kind of jumping onto you in the side lanes on wave stacks. That can be a little bit oppressive, but we'll see, because Orianna definitely kind of speaks to more sort of facilitating some of these dives, or, you know, kind of being more of a neutralizer perhaps if dives end up coming onto you, but they kind of just full commit with that Wukong, which I expect is probably going into the top lane, though I guess technically Graves and Wukong, a lot of flexibility between both the jungle and the top lane still, and we'll try and figure out what actually ends up where. But for Munster, hovering loads of different options, I think given the draft that they've put together for themselves right now, they're kind of versatile in what they can end up locking in. They've hovered the Gragas multiple times. I don't mind this at all. You know, non-committal engage, full committal engage if they want it to go that way, and it can definitely be a safe lane into the Wukong. And of course, can negate some of the passive, you know, resistances, of course, because he's practically a full magic damage champion, whereas Wukong only has that stacking armor from the tough skin. And that is the draft that we're going to end up with from Munster. So definitely very, you know, mid into side laney with the Xin Zhao and the Lissandra. Orianna shouldn't be able to contest priority too heavily early on. Or rather, the other way around. It should be Orianna that should be able to shove her in, the Lissandra, and then after a couple of levels in queue, Liss can start to take priority a little more freely. I beg your pardon, and that's when you can start to see some of that roaming come online. But I think for Lightside, definitely a more passive early game has been drafted. You've got Seraphine, Rakan, you've got Graves in the jungle, you've got Orianna mid lane. There's not too many agency and proactivity options, so I wonder if that's going to be something that's going to harm Lightside or help them if they can, you know, not get pushed too far behind, assuming Munster do use some of the agency options that they have available to them.
You can try to buy or at least burn that flash from Ziz and then punish heavily on the Orianna. We saw that on Division 1. If you can take away the flash from the Orianna, she gets really mobile, and even though you want to play safe, if you're pushed in, well, your lane is going to be terrible. On the other side, we do have an amazing team fight potential coming in from Lightside, so it could be bloody if they're capable of getting the entire combo. It's a massive wombo combo, but I don't think Monster Rugby Gaming will allow themselves to be caught on that one. If they're caught in the big team fight, if they don't have the vision, if they're forced to fight for objectives while it's a 5-on-5, I don't see how this is going to fare. Obviously, you have a lot of disengage, but that is a massive wombo combo from Lightside if they're able to pull it. And obviously, they want to pull it specifically because they have fallen prey from the first spot to the second one. They're still fighting to get back on the track. And we heard it here before on the interview. They were kind of overrated on what they were bringing on Division 2. We still have to wait and see as we move on this summer split for the NLC Division 2. It's on match day 13. What can you expect? Like early game, tell me. Jamara, guide me through this one. You're kind of muted though.
I am muted. I haven't done that in a very long time. Now I can do it. Do you know what it was? I was like, I muted my mic, but I also for some reason muted Discord because I had to type something to our producer. I guess I just forgot to unmute on Discord. My bad, guys. Yeah, I think for Lightside again, I'm looking towards Bambi, and I'm kind of wondering what like early options he realistically has, and I think it's likely just, you know, kind of a full clear angle. We'll kind of track and trace where exactly he decides to put a lot of his focus and resources. But for Shkao, I think, you know, kind of top to bottom, he's kind of free to go where he wants. I think from the bot side, you've got a whole bunch of CCN set up if you want to look for ganks. I think from the mid lane, you might not have priority early on, but I'm pretty sure as levels progress, you can definitely force the issue a little bit more on the Lissandra's end, as long as you kind of deal with the range disadvantage you can find yourself in this matchup from time to time. And yeah, even on the top side, right, a whole bunch of setups, especially once you hit level 6 and the cask is available. So for Munster, I'm expecting a slightly more proactive early game compared to what Lightside could potentially put together for now, just on the drafts. But I think in terms of scaling, you look towards Lightside, Graves, Wukong with the Seraphine, Rakan, a lot of
We are back into this game. You were cut mid-sentence if you want to finish that one. And we're talking about priority because look into this. Instantly, there's an invade coming in from Lightside. Harbo is the one facing off Sis, but I think the action on the other side might be a little bit more dangerous as Harbo is burning down the HP of Oriana. Auto attack by auto attack. You cannot fight this one. Oh, he pulled the faker! He pulled the faker! Meanwhile, Graves is fighting this on, pulls the shotgun, looks into the center. Rebellion's getting so low, and it's going to be the monkey with a flash and a bunk to get the first blood. Baby is still not done. He wants audible. He's fencing it. He wants the kill. One shot away, but the minion is dead. He spikes the minion, takes it outside, and look at Bambi. Oh boy, that is a mad deer.
You are joking. Bam. Teases' flash was absolutely absurd. He flashed into the pixel brush, but he pop faked it, made it look like he was going to be actually doing it into the brush that he was walking towards, and forces the flash out of Harbo instead. That was absolutely galaxy brain.
We need a replay from this. We need a replay
we
from
do.
This. This is faker level. I love that one. We hear this and we see these on Reddit constantly, but we never get to cast these ones. He pulled the faker.
He did. That was absolutely crazy. We'll have a replay immediately just to get to grips. So, Lightside, they're looking for the invade. Skewer kind of spots them out, and it seems like Munster had a pretty rough idea of what's going on. But then the fight kind of splits off into almost 3 different places. You have Harbo and Teases, and this is like, he's pathing towards the bush, and it's just a really solid flash. And you can see why Harbo flashes into this bush thinking he's chasing him down, but he isn't. He's already gone into that brush, and I'm not sure if he just didn't have enough time to see Airy come back into the brush. Otherwise, he could have maybe tracked it. But really smart thinking from Teasers. Really smart Teasers.
He didn't get to buy though. Ziz is low on HP, low on mana as well. Only 1 stack away from the corruption. Well, he already used it. It's done. That's the amount of HP he'll be able to bring. He didn't got himself any sort of assist or first blood on that one, so it's kind of set for him. But you empowered, you accelerated Bambi's build, and this is exactly what you need. So Graves that is bringing in the Dark Harvest. He wants to get fast on track as fast as possible. This is a really good start for Lightside, no?
Yes, absolutely is. And you have to remember as well, from the Graves point of view in this jungle matchup, your items and spikes are pretty cheap. Rebellious actually has no summoners. Yeah.
This is a high threat, no reward, I would say. He does bring the fleet footwork, so he'll be able to sustain himself. We were talking about you, mate. If you have no flash, the Shinzao can go just straight to you as they do it on the bot side, and Sin is going to collapse as well for another one. Lightside with 3 kills, looking for the 4th one. It's not going to happen as he laughs. I mean, he's laughing on the top of the corpse of his ally, so I don't think that's a good laugh, though.
Yeah, I don't think it is either. Did we miss a death from Ruvelius? Because he's died twice.
Yeah, he died on mid lane.
Oh, yeah, right.
He was part of the shenanigans.
He was part of the shenanigans. Yeah, okay. So let's get a look what happened mid, because I'm pretty sure it's just a bit of an overstep from Teaser. No, it's an outright dive. All right, so they just get a dive going. Teaser's still no flash from the level 1. Even though he cleanses, Harbo plays this really well just to ensure that he doesn't take up more tower shots than necessary, and Shakao just flashes to finish off the job. So really nicely executed just to ensure that that is a wave that Teasers can miss, and especially because there's no teleport, it's the cleanse in pocket to not get locked down. That's a pretty sizable amount of XP to miss very early on, and they can even maybe try to look to abuse this very brief window where Harbo could have level 6 before Teasers does, and actually look to get a lockdown in. Bambi steals away that Skull Crab in the face of Shkao and Revelius, so small win there as he's already based, picked up a Serrated Dirk, and again, his build path really cheap, and that's what kind of can make Graves feel very oppressive. You'll see a lot of Graves hit like 2 items at maybe 16, 17, 18 minutes because the first item's only 2,500 gold. And then, of course, the Eclipse is that standard Assassin Mythic cost. So, you know, the combined cost of those two items is very commonly hit very early on, which makes him spike quite hard. And BZ, he is sending this because he's here level 6.
Yes, level 6, so the Cyclone is there, but look at the HP that Skewer is getting. He needs a little bit more experience to get to level 6. If he gets the barrel, he can fight him! Chilling and another day.
Yeah, I mean, NBZ unfortunately just didn't quite have the damage in the tank and the stick power to have the Cyclone do enough to Skewer, and he just heals over time, unfortunately, with the pots. Really nice and well played from Skewer. I feel a little bit bad for NBZ because he was quite close to finding that all in, but doesn't quite find the lethal to connect.
You have to respect the minions at the beginning of the game. Even though you have the stone skin, it's not enough to tank all of those. And Skewer gets himself one, not only advantage on farm, but also on the macro. Gets back by 3 tomes. Well, that's a lot of books that you want to read at the same time. He's going to go back into the lane. On the other side, you have a Sheen. Now that you lost the ultimate fight, you have to wait a little bit before you can pull on the aggression. Maybe Shakal, maybe Bambi can go to the top side and help him a little bit. But he's going to lose the dragon in the process. No vision whatsoever. It's going to be the first ocean. And the second one is going to be the mountain. So the soul could get interesting with the Infernal and the X-Tech available. This could be an interesting run for Soul.
Yeah, we could get a spicy sort of mid-game if it's that Infernal or Hex Tech Dragon, just because a lot of those, you know, those more powerful dragons definitely get contested a little more hotly. Our producer is trolling in our ears and saying, or it could just be a cloud, which is very much a factual statement, but I'm going to ignore him and choose to pray that it's not.
If it's a cloud, I'm telling you, production, I'm leaving. I'm and I know you want that to happen. No, I'm kidding. But no, let's hope not make the game more interesting. Now, looking into Moxox, the idea of this Seraphine with this build, what can we expect?
Yeah,
so double tier though.
Double tier. Oh, I might have to hold this. Maybe this breaks out into a skirmish because Shakal's here, but they both just dash over the wall.
Oh, but you flash over the wall, you get to see Elsa, let it go, and the Frost is coming in. The Edel jumps on the fight, trying to get an assist, but in the end, it's going to be Skewer with that one. The Ignite was more than enough to bring him down and heal as well. Shakal now looks into the Edels. They're still looking for this objective. BZ, I don't know if he couldn't fight this one. The Saxon is available. He's going to pull the trigger. With the Sheen available, he thinks he might take this one. Shakal getting low, but not lowly enough. And BZ now waits over the Skewer in the middle of the pit by himself as Veen comes from the bot side alongside Mushox with the Seraphine. They did a huge travel across the rift just to help him.
Yeah, and I mean, they're not really going to give up too much. I mean, it's just the Tom Kench at the end of the day getting a couple of plates, it seems like. Wave will be missed, so that's definitely going to be felt a little bit, but not too much. Bambi's actually gone to the bottom side of the map to collect on this, and I don't know how I feel as Lightside. They're looking for a play, but the problem is they don't have Bambi on this side of the map, because what I was expecting was Munster lost out on the skirmish in the long term, didn't have the health bar advantage either. That was in favor of Lightside. So we'd see Bambi come back out from base towards the top side and they'll just pick up the Herald, but instead they kind of just split their focus a little bit, and Bambi's going to go for another full clear towards the top side and then potentially look for the Herald after the fact, which in terms of, I guess, pathing efficiency, longevity, sure, it's going to get him slightly further ahead, but sometimes in the comp game it can be very risky to make that selfish play for yourself, right? That very, I am the carry, but I'm trying to get myself ahead. Definitely because...
Hit me with the facts of the items though. We were talking about Seraphine, what can we expect from this?
Oh yeah.
Sing me the song.
So, what we see from the Seraphine is kind of one of two build paths. Sometimes you see the Moonstone come out, and then the other times you see the Ludens, the Leandri, but into the Archangel Staff. And that is simply because Archangel Staff gives you a whole bunch of ability haste now on completion. And on top of that, of course, if you have the Leandries, then the Mythic passive also gives you a fair bit from each legendary completion. So you just basically end up with a bunch of ability haste and obviously damage. Again, you can trade out that like Mage Mythic for a Moonstone. Personally, I'm actually not that big a fan. I think Moonstone has gotten a lot weaker since the durability patch. which is a bit of a shame because I think the Iron, well, the Iron was unhealthy before, to be fair, but maybe a touch too weak. I know, hot take, but definitely very healthy for, you know, flexibility in terms of what other champions can exist. So I definitely prefer that slightly more damage and ability haste based build in that the Andres instead.
See how it happens, as the Night Harvest is going to be the deciding item for Skewer. We have seen this Gragas build constantly, and the amount of damage and rotations that you can have on those kills is pretty high, and is going to be a menace to deal with. The amount of CC you can bring, there's ultimates as well. Out of a sudden you get popped, and that's more than 50% of your HP that disappears in a second. Talking about someone disappear, well, the Adult is going to take a trip to the pockets of Bambi, I believe, as the plates are still available. He's taken down. 11 minutes in, we had some a little bit of action, I would say. And now with the Eclipse, with the Adult, with the double vision ward on that little bush, we could be looking for the mid lane. All plates are still alive though, so you will not be able to take this one with one go.
Yeah, I mean, they are actually shoving in as a duo. They're not going to drop the Herald there. I was expecting maybe a slightly harder shove than that. Maybe they could end up picking up 4 plates. But the rest of the Munster are going to respond. They're also going to start to slowly push the top laner of Munster out of the river and then try and maybe set up some vision. But there is a control ward, which, yeah, it's going to get spotted out, so there's no risk of a flank. I mean, we're actually not at the Unleashed teleport point of the game yet anyway, so it doesn't quite matter. I think it's important to know Bambi's actually exceptionally strong, and so is NBZ. They both have their mythics, but still going in Munster.
Goes in, gets the entire Frost field, and meanwhile is going to be the one taking the head of that play. He's the playmaker, but he's also the dead one. Meanwhile, grabs him, goes into the belly, and as soon as he steps out, loads the shotgun and puts one on fast flag. Now he's going to be fast running away as Busy is going on the Cyclone Menace. Spin is on the front line as well. Baby tried to sustain himself, and Ruvelis just doesn't have enough damage. Talking about damage, fast flag goes back in, and he's fresh served cold. That's sushi on the menu, as it's going to be Lightside with the advantage on this fight.
Yeah, Lightside take the advantage. Harbo isn't able to pull up the Frozen Tomb in time. Just gets CC chained 100-0. Ends up dropping, and from there, it's just a 5v4 that Munster just always have to retreat in. And unfortunately, Lightside were able to play that one out exceptionally well, so that nobody actually on their end dies. I thought that maybe Bambi would go down when he gets devoured and kind of shoved back into Revelius, but just wasn't enough damage in the tank. And Bambi, I think, flashed out immediately, so able to keep himself alive. And again, I was about to say, I feel like Lightside, if a skirmish were to break out, they would win anyway, just on items alone. I don't think Skewer had that Night Harvester finished up, whilst on the opposite side, MBZ had that Divine Sunderer, and Bambi can actually go for the... I always forget the item. I'm going to have to hold the point. Skewer's kind of giving a lot of hurt to MBZ. The problem is, Divine Sunderer gives... Yeah, Divine Sunderer of Conqueror gives a whole bunch of healing, so there will be no solo bolo.
Yeah, there's no solo bolo. Oi, oi, oi. Mid lane goes down in favor of Lightside. They open up the map. And meanwhile, Mountain Drake is available. And now he's gone. It's going to be the X Gate. We have the X Dragon. No clouds. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no clouds. Unlike today in England, very warm, very cloudy for any viewers in the UK. But getting a look at the fight, Harbo feels like he finds a bit of an angle, and there is a general, you know, chaining of CC very briefly, but you can see, unfortunately, Harbo gets, I believe, charmed into knockup, into shockwaved, and just can't press any of his keys. On the top side of the fight, though, Bambi, again, gets devoured, just doesn't really have to do much to escape. The shielding and the healing comes in from his team, and then the follow-up engage comes from there. Shakal, I don't think that ultimate lasts very long anymore, so Tease is just going to murder him, gets inside of the Venodrome? What is the little circle? No. Gladiator ring.
The
Zindao
Gladiator ring?
I don't know what to call it.
Well,
but,
it's baptized the Gladiator ring right now. It's, that's the new update on Jinzhao. I don't know if you guys seen that one before, but there you go. Let's look into the replay, as we need to understand what happened in this play. Chakal, I mean, you take more than...
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, that's Chakal's own fault.
Gladiator ring, as we call it, the Crescent Guard, though. And yeah, he steps in.
Yeah, very curious. As I guess maybe he felt like he'd have more damage. That felt a lot like Lee Sin syndrome, where you hit. Oh wait, Svene is alive.
He's jumping. It's okay.
Yeah, very mobile champion, but look at the collapse coming in as that's an encore.
He gets the top catch, but Spana is way too low, flushes away from the ultimate of Xena. But in the end, Harbo comes in to claim what he couldn't at the beginning of the fight. Moshox now with the items completed, but Seraphine cannot sing that loud as Cure is the last one singing. They finally get themselves. It's about this. It's about creating some fights where you don't have the Robo combo available, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose so, right? In that 5v5, we're talking about Lightside's ability to, you know, find those big montage moments with more people getting clipped in a whole bunch of CC. But, you know, if Munster can find them kind of split apart a little bit, then maybe the composition a little bit weaker. In theory, Svene bumps into Shikao, and BZ did pick up the tower on the top side, so they at least cross-map a little bit there. Teasers caught out, dead.
Now the one, if they keep getting caught like this, picks and picks, is this what the team of the composition Munster Rugby Gaming excels at? Like making picks inside push?
I mean, to be fair, I don't think his team fighting prowess is particularly bad. I just think that a lot of what Lightside's composition does inside of team fights kind of counters it. I think the fact that Lightside deal very well with diving whilst also diving in quite well. I think both these comps actually do a pretty good job of both angles. It's just that the utility portion of Lightside's composition is definitely one that I can see later on down the line causing issues for Munster. Obviously, there's a pretty sizable gold lead at the moment too. Almost 5,000 is the difference, but I think that the fact that Lightside have, you know, so much shielding, so much additional healing from items, but also from champions, it could make Munster's ability to find very consistent picks very difficult.
It's going to be a second item Void Staff in favor of Harbo. Luden's Echo, Void Staff, at least you have the Jewel. The Blighted Jewel is there, so I reckon he's going for that Void Staff. You have the stopwatch. So is this a mixed match where you go for the watch, you go for the Jewel, and then you finish the Zonias, and you at least have some sort of percentage penetration, even though there's not a lot of magic resist on the other side?
I suppose that's the thought process. I think definitely given how easy it is for Harbo to get chain CC'd, kind of surprised to not see an outright Zhonya's rush. Maybe feels like he needs the Blighting Jewel to deal a little more damage in the now. But we'll see exactly what kind of value he can get out of it. Because at the end of the day, stopwatch, Zhonya's, you buy the Zhonya's for the stopwatch. You don't really buy the Zhonya's for the stats, right? The stats are kind of just an additive so that you scale a little more into the game. We'll talk about that later if he actually finds a good use out of it. Munster in the area for this, but not really looking to contest. And this will be the second Herald that goes over to Bambi, so Lightside controlling the Heralds. Munster definitely been more firm on the Dragon side of things, but I think this third Dragon is probably going to change that because Lightside have pretty strong control on the map right now, just because of their overall lead in this game. Tower lead, map pressure, already is just going to benefit them a little bit too heavily here.
And look at the timer as well, 18:47. So he picked up the Herald at 18:30. He has a lot of time. I don't think Stewart has a lot of time as the Night Harvest gets procced. But Stewart has to go through the turret. One more shot and there you go. There's no rage that's going to keep you alive from that one. Revelius wants revenge, but he'll get none of it. It seems like Sis, even though he was punished in the early game, he's doing fairly well right now.
Oh yeah, Teasers has definitely been one of the stronger performances despite the super weak woes that Lightside did experience. I'll hold this as teleport comes in, but maybe the play just gets turned around on his head. There's no shockwave though. Revelius had to blow the heal, but Shikao definitely caught out.
Yeah, charge pressure guard comes in, but he's inside of the circle. They want to fight you on melee range, so that is not going to provide you with any sort of defense. You lose the cooldown in the middle of that timing as well. You may use the Herald now if you want to open more the map. Where do you use it, or do you save it for a veteran play, a sneaky one?
I think you probably just save it for an opportunistic play, right? Like, hey, we want a skirmish. This is a really good time to drop the Herald kind of thing. Because at the moment, they kind of have the towers that they need down, right? Mid lane tower, tier 1, gone, topside tier 1. Like, useful for when Baron is on the map, but not necessarily necessary to have. So still feeling pretty good about this one. Bambi trying to get away, but chain CC.
It'll be Bambi's turn. We've seen Harbo getting clocked down, and that was way too close though. He almost got out. But there's nothing to fight for. Like, you have the X-Tech Dragon at this point. He did it. There's still 3 minutes and 45 seconds for the next big objective, so you gotta kill before what?
Yeah, exactly. And Munster, I mean, it's going to feel nice, but if you get picked off like this, then what does it really matter?
This is the Senna. Now you can open up the maps. This is also applying some pressure on the bot side. I don't think Harbu can fight this one. Leandris is burning through the skin of Harbu. It's slowly but surely going for Lightside favor. And I don't see a reply from Munster Rugby Gaming.
No, not just yet. And I'm really not sure whether one will come in because Munster, I think the flexibility of their comp doesn't really quite reach the same ceilings that Lightsides have. Yes, there's maybe not as heavy a front line, but there's a lot more access to damage and there's a little more range. And again, that utility healing, shielding factor is really going to make Munster's ability to try and find picks off the back of Harbo engages with this Lissandra very, very hard to execute. It's more or less going to have to be Lightside that actually misstep, overreach, maybe get caught out in rotation, and for Munster to try and find those small windows.
It's a black cleaver, so there's no armor on Tom Kench, but now he gets isolated 1v3. He doesn't care. Sven follows through. The call has been made. They want to take down the mid liner. He flashes away. And Sven caught him in the side. And meanwhile, Moshox is now singing on the back line. Estiz is going to take yet another one. 12-7. Things are falling hard for Munster Rugby Gaming. And the map is open. The Baron is available, Jamara.
Yeah, and they're actually going to start this one up straight away. Okay, I mean, Harbo dead has teleport. Munster, they maybe just feel like aren't strong enough. MBZ is just being an absolute nuisance. He has Cyclone!
1v3! That's a thick skin if I've ever seen. Shakal is lonely, but
oh my god!
The command protect, and BZ takes no witnesses. Only Skewer survives. The Leandris is burning, but what can you do by yourself? Oh, wow! Sis almost found him. They get the Baron. They get everything. Only BZ dies, and he doesn't even have TP, so he's not allowed to split push. So he's going to join the team. That's going to be an empowered team.
Yeah, Baron on everybody but MBZ, who was just doing so much work there. Teases does a really good job to help his top laner in that 1v3 scenario. And they almost make it a 3 for none as well. Super great from him. Skewer able to pick up the pieces at the very least of MBZ. But Fastleg eats up the monkey as he kind of jumps back onto him with the crushing blows. And Svene, curiously enough, actually decides to go onto Harbo as opposed to Fastleg, interrupt the Abyssal Dive. Maybe feel like he wouldn't get in on top of him in time. But Harbo, quite deep amongst all of this and just ends up dropping a little bit out of sync with the rest of his team. Now, Munster, what exactly happens for this to occur? Because it feels like the Baron was being started up. Revelius kind of half face checks into MBZ, and then he just commits. With the Cyclones, he deals so much damage. And Teases is able to get the ball over the wall just about enough to get the shockwave in, whereas Skewer has to commit everything in his kit to actually execute Wukong. Otherwise, he would have died in what was effectively very close to a 3v1.
No turret on the bot side. They take the T2. No reply whatsoever. 15 seconds for the second X-Tech Dragon. Harbo takes one of those bounties. That's some gold flowing into their pockets. If you need any sort of help whatsoever. Now you get the bounty. You lose the dragon. You're still far away from the soul, so it's not that big of a deal. But getting ability haste and attack speed on a Wukong with the Graves, with the Oriana as well. It's a lot of targets that you don't want to give that ability haste.
Yeah, no, a lot of really strong stats for Lightside here, particularly the ability haste for the spellcasters on this team is incredibly potent. If they end up getting Hextech Soul, though this game is on trend to definitely not last 10 minutes, it would be, what, 24 extra ability haste, which with a build like Moxox's, I think that build with Transcendence, I want to say already gives the Seraphine around 110 ability haste with the extra dragons. Well, no amount of ability haste is going to save you from this, but I think I saw the number there, 97, so I was about 10 off. Not sure where I miscalculated, but yeah, a lot of additional ability haste. Lightside though,
wait,
trying to, yeah, this is the opposite side of the jungle.
There.
And Bambi is curiously not even going to try and interrupt them. I think he's actually going to, nope. Okay,
no, he's just on the mission. He's just
like,
farming away the jungle while
this
is doing...
This is like such a jungler like in solo queue thing. Oh, my team's pushing top lane with Baron. All right, I mean, I've got this full quadrant of the jungle to farm, and I'm playing CS permanent graves. So
The thing is, he
unfortunately,
saw them coming in, and now he's not
Yeah,
there, and he's going to get late. This could be the return from Munster Rugby Gaming.
Oh
There's
my
a lot
God.
of AoE. The damage is just not there, though, as BZ is making an awful lot of work right there. Bambi finally joins in as the Encore comes in and slows down the team fight, and this allows Bambi to finally pile down on the damage that he wanted to provide. But in my opinion, it was so much work coming from the rest of the team, and they still get an ace.
again, and I just feel like it's the trumping of all of the utility, all that shielding, all the healing. There's just nothing really available to Munster to shut that down, and there was just no real chance of finding a pick onto a key member, even in what started as effectively, what, a 3 versus 5, pretty much, for Munster. They weren't able to pick up any kills. The rest of the members come in. Bambi finishes up his, RuneScape PvE session, and he makes it back to the top side. He cleans house alongside the rest of Lightside and Mbz as well. So many others knocked up with that Cyclone. It's just so powerful. Just not able to drop the tough skin, protecting him from Ruvelius and Shkal, and then has the all of that magic resist and anti-heal, additional healing, Omnivamp, rather, is the word I was looking for, from the passive once that's procs, just makes him too damn tanky.
27 minutes in. 2 minutes for the next dragon, and if you look into those items, I mean, BZ is on another level right now. He jumps in, he doesn't care. They have multiple mortars. As soon as the Omnivamp pops, that's going to be so much sustain. And aside from a fast leg, the Tom Kench, I don't see anyone with Vivi's wounds. So if he doesn't touch him, he's going to be sustaining himself so much, you can't even fight him.
And even then, like, fast legs, like grievous wounds, one, it's only 25% if somebody auto-attacks him, which when you look at Lightside, that's only really going to impact Mbz, right? The Divine Thunder procs in practice, right? Obviously, the Lightside members can just kind of choose to actively not auto-attack him, unless you're Bambi, in which case you kind of have to. That's a lot of damage source, and you can be pretty okay with that. And then the 40% Grievous Wounds application is from the Abyssal Dive or a stun from the Tongue Lash if the passive is stacked up. So it's just not really going to apply too much. So Munster, again, options very limited. You can't really pick up a Serpent's Fang on anybody either, besides maybe Ruvelius, but I feel like then maybe you shut yourself down in terms of other scaling items, which kind of give you a little bit more value. I think Lightside have pretty much just put themselves in a position where it's, dare I say, near impossible to lose, but I've seen bigger leads get thrown.
Oh yeah, definitely. But if you're looking into those items, I was thinking maybe Shakal could go for it, because if you prop the ultimate, you're the Crescent Guard, you can apply damage to all of them. There you go. Then you can reduce that shield. If you want to go for the healing, I was thinking Harm could go for the ultimate.
Yeah, I think realistically the best person to have some grievous wounds here is probably Harbor, right? Morello Nomicon is also buffed up pretty strong in the stats it gives you at the moment. 90 AP, I think it's 300 AP, 300 HP rather. I think it's been buffed up too. Looking for Lightside here.
There's the engage, but there you go. You don't survive to see the rest of it. You pop the ultimate on yourself to get some sort of healing with the Zonias as well. And as soon as you come out of the tomb, everybody's on their own tomb. As a tumble kill comes in, another one for BZ. And this is a cleanup in favor of Lightside.
Yeah, I mean, Lightside again. So much healing, so much shielding. Who is dying? Who on Munster is dealing that much damage to get through all of the additional stats being provided to everybody? And Svene, the only person that ends up dying in this exchange. Skua gets towered over underneath the Nexus towers. And that should just be about game. Lightside break their 3-game duck in the Super Week. Weren't able to pick up a single win. Munster also still, I think it's their 5th loss on the trot now, unfortunately for them. But for Lightside, a bit of a breath of fresh air, considering where they were come the end of Super Week. Definitely very needed this win.
It's a good return into the standings to allow them to climb a little bit higher. They still want to fight for that first seed. But as long as you keep yourself on the first one and the second one, you're good to go. It doesn't matter. At the end of the split, obviously you want to win the regular split, but it's better to get into the playoffs at least on the second seed than the third one. And this was a good showcase when you bring us a different sort of composition. They invaded in the beginning of the game. They made life a living hell for the enemies. Really well executed for Lightside.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think Lightside, especially like you say, it's just the execution from that early invade, even down to the small mind games like the flash into the pixel rush from teasers. All excellent stuff. Definitely, I think from the Munster point of view, it's going to be hard to look at that game and be like, that was super productive. I think a lot of the focus might be on, that early invade. I don't think it necessarily made or broke the game though, because most of the light side members weren't actually able to come back onto the map and spend, if I recall correctly. I don't think Teasers was. I don't think MBZ could either. I'd have to, go back and watch a replay or the VOD to double check. I think it was only Bambi. No, I don't even think Bambi based. So they got gold leads, yes, but they weren't able to really spend them immediately. But the time lost on dying on the invade, etc., definitely something that technically skewered the game a little bit. But at the end of the day, I think this was Lightside having a stronger composition that dealt with the very limited tools that Munster had in the mid game, and Munster weren't really able to execute on any of those sort of early to mid game tower dives with the Lissandra on the side lanes or anything along those lines. And unfortunately, they just got outscaled.
At the end of the day, let's talk with the players to understand how they're going. So that's why we're going to send it to a break, and we'll be right back with them. I'll see you soon.